Welcome to the WattSherpa Podcast, your guide to energy efficiency and savings.
I'm very excited to speak today with Jason Elliott, Assistant Director of Engagement and Communications at Sustainable Duke. The mission of Sustainable Duke is to educate and empower the Duke community to create a more sustainable campus future through social, economic, and environmental change on campus and beyond. In his role, Jason helps bring together a wide variety of groups and resources across Duke to fulfill the school's climate and sustainability goals, which includes not just engaging in classroom activities, but also with athletics, student affairs, and research labs on campus. He also spearheads programming and oversees communications for Sustainable Duke. And he's also a graduate of Duke himself, having earned a master's degree in environmental management and in forestry from the school. He joined Sustainable Duke in 2014 to focus on the program's leading carbon offset initiative and became the assistant director in 2017. So, Mr. Elliott, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thank you so much for pulling it together.
Great. So the first question that I had is sustainability is obviously a very broad topic. And having watched some of your presentations on Sustainable Duke, I know that you often like to start by defining what sustainability is. So could you discuss how you and the Sustainable Duke team are defining sustainability?
Yeah, and so sustainability, some of the original definitions that most people grab onto come from the Brundtland Report that was published in 1987, 37 years ago, quite a while ago. But it uses terminology like meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And while I find it helpful, it doesn't fully encapsulate what we think of when we think of as sustainability. At Duke University, we like to think about sustainability in three intersecting and overlapping circles. And you already brought those up with our mission: environmental, social, and economic. Environmental is generally where most people enter the sustainability realm at, trying to identify ways to reduce waste, maybe to reduce their commuting emissions, finding ways to make their home more energy efficient. But we like to think about social and economic pillars of sustainability, social being like human health and wellness. One of the things whenever I'm asking about examples at Duke to students, what do you think of when you think of social sustainability? It's mostly crickets. People aren't giving me answers, but I'm like, who's stressed right now? And a lot of students are starting to raise their hand. And so really identifying ways that they can think about their social sustainability is key to their long-term sustainability. And then with regards to economic sustainability, thinking about ways that whenever we do initiatives, does it actually have a return on investment? That's something that might be really important to certain people on campus. Are we making sure that the benefits of a program, the financial benefits, are going to the people who need them the most? Those are the types of things that really broaden this definition of sustainability. But to take it one step further, one thing that I really like, and we're trying to introduce more and more on campus in our classes, is thinking about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And if you haven't seen them, they're goals that have very big, huge concepts like zero hunger or a world without war and conflict, but also trying to make sure that we're meeting reductions with regards to greenhouse gas emissions globally. And those are things that maybe we, Duke University alone, are not going to make the world have zero hunger. But how can we think about those and those manifestations on campus? How can we work towards those goals ourselves? And so I'm finding that a lot of students are really excited about that because it kind of broadens the definition of sustainability beyond what they normally think of.
Mm. I think it's so interesting, all the different ways that you guys really approach sustainability in this way. In my research, I learned that Sustainable Duke was launched about 20 years ago in 2004. Could you talk about the history of the program, as well as why Duke was so early in identifying the need for a university to take action against climate change?
Like you said, we started in 2004, and it was actually a recent graduate with a resume in hand saying, I think you should have a sustainability office. And so I think that's a really interesting way that we can actually encapsulate our journey. And so soon after the start of Sustainable Duke, Tavy Capps, who is now our executive director of climate sustainability for the university, started. She's been here over time, making sure that we are stewarding our path forward in a way that is infusing sustainability in all corners of campus. With your question about why did Duke adopt this type of work early on? Honestly, I think higher ed has been in the lead when it comes to sustainability, primarily because we have youth regularly coming into campus and actually trying to identify, how can I avoid the worst parts of climate change in the future? This is my future that I'm really concerned about. And students are actually taking that concern and harnessing it to come up with really ingenious solutions whether it's something to be done on campus, maybe it's going to be something done in their future career. But they're the ones who are helping us re-envision and reimagine what we can be doing and should be doing, but also thinking about how the things we do on campus broaden to the broader global connections that we have. So I really appreciate those students bringing their passion and ingenuity to co-create a better future for all of us, wherever they go, either on campus or wherever they go in their future careers. But flashing forward to today, realizing we're skipping over about a decade, one of the biggest things that has happened more recently is Duke has changed so much since 2004. But as of 2022, we now have a university-wide charge, a climate commitment. And this is something that's relatively unique in higher ed, where the climate commitment was born out of conversations with leaders across campus with the goal of activating all aspects of Duke's mission, including research, education, sustainable operations, community partnerships, and engagement with external partners and entities like state and federal policy. So this commitment has actually led to such a burgeoning passion and interest from all folks across campus. Now they're coming to us and saying, what can I do to take my skill set and help lend them to the climate commitment, which is exactly what we wanted. So it's really interesting to see how far we've come in the past couple of years, but also how far I think we're going to actually be going.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of commitments to sustainability, I know that Duke is the first school among the Ivy Plus peer set to attain carbon neutrality, which is obviously an incredible achievement. The school originally made the pledge to reach net zero carbon emissions in, I believe, 2007. And could you talk about the mix of initiatives that were implemented to realize this goal over the past 17 years?
Yeah, and so we're really excited. We're physically in the year of carbon neutrality. And while we will actually have to wait until July to actually finalize all of our data, but really excited to see the work. And so are many of our peers. They're trying to figure out, how did you do it so soon? A lot of our peers that we're seeing across higher ed, as well as across the globe and corporate world, set goals in more like 2040 or 2050. That feels like very last minute, especially given that we have a charge of reducing our global temperature increase, keeping it below 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2050. We have to work now. These are the types of things that I'm really excited that Duke has really stepped up and started to do. Thankfully, we've had strong support from our leadership, including our board of trustees, which is our highest echelon of decision makers on campus, our president, heads of departments, et cetera, all trying to figure out how do we take this huge goal and really make it happen. And so from an energy perspective, some of the major initiatives that we've done since 2007 include discontinuing the use of coal on campus, increasing the energy efficiency of our buildings, the decarbonization of our utility providers' electricity. And starting in 2025, we'll have a 101 megawatt solar project coming online, which will cover about 50% of Duke's electricity use. For transportation, which is another big component of our emissions, that's been an uphill battle ever since the beginning. And so since 2007, Duke has grown by 14,000 student, staff, and faculty, which is a huge population growth. And this is coupled with the fact that employees are now living about twice as far away from campus than they were back in 2007. So our commuting emissions have been on the rise. However, one of the very few silver linings of the pandemic was we all figured out how we could potentially do remote work in a really successful way. And we've been able to maintain a good hybrid working relationship with all of our employees, where a lot of them will work maybe 2 or 3 days on campus, but those other days, that means they're not coming to campus. So that's 40% of their commuting emissions that are now gone. And that's something that has really helped us keep those commuting emissions really low. But another big part of our transportation impact is air travel. It's one of the hardest things to decrease. The pandemic obviously led to a very sharp decrease, but we pretty much fully rebounded back to pre-pandemic levels. And a lot of that, I think, is because the core functions of our university include presenting information at conferences, students studying abroad, people being able to go to their research site, and we have athletics, huge athletics portfolio, and they will sometimes be traveling, especially now that we've expanded the ACC to include schools that are out west. And so really needing to reckon with the fact that we do have these emissions, we need to figure out how best to avoid them. And then lastly, you brought up this in your introduction, but we have a carbon offset initiative. We are the first university-based carbon offset initiative in the United States. But given that we will not have a carbon zero electricity grid locally starting this year, we won't have affordable access to fossil-free alternatives for gasoline and jet fuel, we knew we're going to have remaining emissions. So carbon offsets are projects that we invest in that are off-site, They're not Duke University cited projects that are reducing emissions. And when we first started back in 2010, we piloted a bunch of projects. One of them is swine waste to energy, because in North Carolina, we have more hogs than people. And so there's a lot of waste that we need to figure out, how do we capture this methane? And then other projects we've done have been residential solar and energy efficiency programs. And then one of our more popular flagship programs is our urban forestry program, meaning the planting of trees in the urban environment, whether it's in cities, whether it's on various people's properties, et cetera. It's a really great way to reduce emissions by sequestering carbon, but also when you plant trees in certain spaces, you are reducing their need to cool their building because it's providing shade. It's a wind block in the wintertime, and it does so many other things like reducing stormwater runoff and flooding. Being in the driver's seat for a lot of these projects historically has really helped us figure out what we need to know when we're actually going out to the market to buy offsets, because we did small pilot projects just to kick the tires and really understand them, but we need a lot of offsets. And so there's already a bunch of providers out that we're working with to identify really high quality offsets, because not all offsets are created equal.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting. I think it just goes to show how invested you guys are into this commitment, given how many different ways you're approaching this problem and just attempting to find the best solutions to all of them. I know that Duke also has a wide range of environmentally focused groups and facilities, like the Duke Forest, Duke Gardens, and the Campus Farm and the Lemur Center, and of course the Nicholas School for the Environment as well. Can I ask, how have you fostered collaboration among these various components to collectively pursue your sustainability objectives?
Yeah, and so we work really closely with Duke Forest, Duke Gardens, the Campus Farm, as well as the Nicholas Institute for Energy, Environment, Sustainability, which is separate from the Nicholas School. But they're all a part of our Duke University's Office of Climate and Sustainability. And so often these groups, we will work with them to figure out unique programming that we can provide to the campus community. We will also serve as clients fairly regularly for student projects or research that's happening on campus. And the directors of each of these organizations regularly meet to actually discuss, what are you working on? And what are some ways that we can potentially tie our programs together to make a larger impact at the end of the day? One of the more recent examples of a program that we pulled together is sometimes students don't go away for spring break. They stay here on campus. And so we created a spring break program on climate sustainability that highlighted each of our Office of Climate Sustainability departments and their work that they're doing. And so many of the students had never been to the forest before, or to the Duke Campus Farm, or even really to downtown Durham. And so it's just an interesting way to introduce that there's so many opportunities available on campus. With the Lemur Center and these other entities, there's no shortage of really amazing climate and sustainability-based research happening on campus. The Lemur Center, which is actually located in Duke Forest, has the largest population of prosimians outside of Madagascar. That's here, right at Duke University. And so I highly recommend anybody, when you're coming to visit, to schedule a tour of the space, because it's really amazing opportunity that most people will never have. But beyond that, you brought up the Nicholas School. And so we work a lot with student, staff, and faculty from the Nicholas School of the Environment. One of the benefits of being an alum is I know most of the people who are already over there, and I can serve as a resource whenever they're considering a new sustainability initiative that they're hoping to pilot. In an academic sense, we also will do a lot of research projects where we serve as clients. And us serving as a client will make sure that we are finding ways that are engaging the students and faculty at Nicholas School with our operations staff on campus. And so some of the things that I've been fortunate to do has been working with students to develop a climate action plan for our marine lab on campus, not on campus, but out in Beaufort, North Carolina, developing a solarized Duke program for Duke employees, meaning how can we put solar on Duke employees' home to help them reduce their carbon impact of their house, as well as crafting a strategy for Duke to adopt an electric vehicle fleet. And those things are not easy lifts, but with the students' support and help, it's really helped to push these conversations a lot further, faster.
Those are all so interesting. And a lot of those things that you're working on actually answered part of my next question. But my next question was, what are Sustainable Duke's goals beyond carbon neutrality on campus? Obviously, given that you're going to reach it so soon, what do you hope to achieve over the very long term after that?
Yeah, and so right now, our Climate Commitment Advisory Council, which is a group made up of students, staff, and faculty all across the university, is figuring out what is beyond carbon neutrality for us. Some of the things that we're looking into is thinking also about our health system and how can they join us, because health systems they also have a huge climate impact globally. And so recognizing that there's some really interesting opportunities that we might be able to test here and apply broadly to other health systems across the nation or across the world. But carbon neutrality is just one piece of the puzzle when it comes to reducing impact in a changing climate. So many of the initiatives that we do might have a greenhouse gas emission reduction, but maybe that's not actually the main driver of the work that we're doing. And so some examples include reducing our water use on campus. So Duke University being the largest water user in the city of Durham, North Carolina, we have to really think about like, how are we best stewarding this potable water resource, both for us, but also recognizing the community need. So back in 2008, we had a major drought. And we had to really like soul search to be like, what are ways on campus we can actually reduce our water use? And one of those, our big initiatives was creating like a reclamation pond. So we like gather stormwater from all across West Campus. It goes into a pond, and that helps us reduce our water use by 100 million gallons per year because we can use non-potable rainwater for a lot of the functions that we need for our utility plant, for example. And so that was a really great project to do. We also do a lot of work with preserving natural areas, not just Duke Forest, but also across campus, because we are a university in the forest. And so those natural resources are definitely key to our identity. Also working hard on sustainable purchasing or procurement, figuring out the best ways that we are buying local whenever possible. Is it organic? Are there other sustainability certifications we can identify? Diverting our waste from landfills, as well as educating and engaging the entire campus and local communities. Most of my work falls into the last little bit, where I focus on educating in the campus. Some of the things that we do, primarily with students, we have our Sustainability Ambassadors program that is offered only to first-year students at Duke, which usually has 30 to 40 students in it each year. We have over a dozen Green Devil interns who are working on campus programming, like our pop-up thrift store, sustainable athletics, Earth Month programming, etc. We also have an experiential orientation program for 100 plus students each year. This is for first-year students. You probably know this a little bit, but each student is assigned to a experiential orientation topic. There's, I think, 22 out there, and we do the one on climate sustainability. And it's a really great way for us to really learn from folks all across the world who are coming in with all their various ideas, while also trying to introduce them to campus and to each other. In terms of more of the staff and faculty world, we do a lot of certification programming to help them make their workplace or their labs more sustainable, as well as going to present to them and help strategize what they could possibly do.
It's great. And I think it just goes to show that how many students you have involved in sustainability shows all these students' commitments. That kind of leads into my next question, in that climate change is really starting to have an impact across nearly every major industry. And for WattSherpa, I've started interviewing experts across a wide range of disciplines like policy, marketing, neurobiology, and media. Duke obviously has a wide variety of schools and majors. How do you think about infusing a sustainable mindset across disciplines at the school?
Yeah, first, I applaud your work on WattSherpa. I got to poke around it a little bit. I think it's a really great platform, so congrats on building that. But second, I just love the question. At Duke, we're trying to take a stance that all majors are climate majors, since regardless of your discipline and where you go to work in the future, you might be impacted by climate change. And so how can you think about climate sustainability in your work, even if you don't have one of those words in your actual title? One of the greatest things that we try to actually demonstrate this like work is trying to lean into our strength of fostering collaboration and interdisciplinarity, meaning we're not going to solve climate change just with an environmental studies perspective, but we also need our engineers, our medical providers, our artists, our community organizers, our lawyers, and every other discipline to come together, because these diverse perspectives are going to be invaluable in making long-lasting solutions, as well as ingenious ideas that might not just come out of just a single person. And a little bit more of a personal example, I have a non-traditional pathway to where I'm at right now. In undergrad, I studied accounting and economics, mainly because I love numbers and finding ways to use data to tell stories. But I see both of these disciplines as really great tools, but I wanted something to apply them to, which is why I came to grad school at the Nicholas School, where I study more about forestry and environmental economics. And while I still use straight up accounting and straight up economics in day-to-day work, I do our department financial and accounting work, as well as use it for what's a return on investment if we were to invest in this versus this project. But more readily, I use it as transferable skills. Like I use accounting for greenhouse gas accounting. There's very similar things except for using metric tons of emissions versus dollars and cents. Other things, economics is a really great way to think about how people should or could be making decisions. So there's a lot of psychology ties to it. So if you ever study economics, behavioral economics can be a really interesting field to really try to think about how do we encourage behavior change? Because changing someone's behavior can be really difficult, as most people probably have experienced through their work and over time. But I think being able to lean into these diverse skill sets really helps.
Yeah, it's so true that sustainability itself is such a big topic, and it really needs an interdisciplinary approach in order to really create a large-scale solution. Outside of the main campus, I know that Duke has a number of programs that reach well beyond Durham. And having spent most of my childhood in New York City, I'm very interested in how we can drive sustainable practices and environmental justice in urban environments. And I was excited to see that Duke joined a consortium called the New York Climate Exchange, which will be based on Governor's Island near Manhattan. So could you share a little more about that project?
Yeah, and so our executive director, Taby Capps, is the primary liaison for Sustainable Duke on this project. I don't know nearly as much as she does, but the New York Climate Exchange launched about a year ago. And it's a way to foster private and public relationships to work towards climate solutions. Some of our partners include, obviously, Duke, we're one of them, Georgia Tech, University of Washington, Stony Brook, and companies like IBM, all working to find ways to address the challenges of climate change. And similar to my previous comment on needing a diverse set of opinions and experiences, this is fully living into that type of interdisciplinary approach to this type of work. While ground hasn't been broken yet, it should start construction in 2025 and be completed in 2028. But the climate exchange is not just a place, it's also an idea. And so the exchange's vision consists of 5 areas, including education, research, commercialization, workforce development, and public programming. And while we're only in the early stages of this type of work, I'm really excited to see where everybody's going to go with it, because these are all very big, important topics to think about. But if you want to sneak peek their website on the Governor Island project, they have some ideas that they're already percolating. And I think that's a really great place to see ways to potentially get engaged before. If you're in New York, you can go and check it out. But I think there's so many opportunities that exist.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a great initiative. Another program that I wanted to ask about, and I believe you mentioned it earlier, but the Duke Green Devils, which I think you said hosts approximately 10 student interns per year. Could you elaborate on the academic disciplines that these students represent at Duke and the roles they undertake within Sustainable Duke?
Yeah, and so we have a wide variety of students who are all studying very different things. And so I'm just going to give you a list of our students and what they're studying. So Elena is studying economics and environmental studies. Brandon was studying psychology. Ezra was business and markets at our Fuqua School of Business. Nick, computer sciences. Ashley, mechanical engineering. Charlotte was biology. Michelle's environmental humanities and multimedia. Caitlin was cultural anthropology. Bianca was biomedical engineering. And Dima is a Master of Environmental Management as well as an MBA. It's such a cross-cutting thing. They're not all environmental studies majors, which probably most people think they would be. But that's what I love. We're able to actually foster really amazing projects with them throughout the year, and they're all able to lend their various knowledges and expertise. And in terms of like the roles that they take, a lot of them function as project managers for a variety of the programs that we run at Sustainable Duke. And Elena and Brandon both were also athletes, Elena in field hockey, Brandon in football, but they both worked hard to make Duke athletics more sustainable. Rachel and Nick led our first-year ambassadors program that I mentioned earlier. Ashley and Charlotte coordinate our pop-up thrift store on campus that happens multiple times throughout the year. Michelle and Caitlin lead our communications efforts, including developing like social media, engaging with students across campus, and helping tell the story of sustainability. And that's just a few of them. But I'd be remiss not to mention Sophia Masciarelli in our office. She's our engagement coordinator. She's the one who leads this program, and it's because of her vision and her work with these students that we've come so far. And so I'm really excited to have her on the team, and she's one of the best people if you ever get to meet her.
And I hate to just repeat myself over and over again, but it really, again, just goes to show how many different ways and how many opportunities there are, just in general and at Duke as well, to interact with sustainability, no matter what field you're interested in.
Repeat yourself all you want. It's a great space to be.
As a last fun question, I just wanted to ask, you were a student at Duke yourself, and as you reflect on your experience at the school, I just wanted to know what your favorite thing is at Duke, besides obviously the Sustainable Duke program.
Yeah, and so being a first-gen low-income student, I didn't have as many opportunities growing up that other folks did, but coming to the Nicholas School provided a diverse set of opportunities that I would never have been able to do in Goshen, Indiana. Really exciting. Some of the things are like being able to make friends from all across the world and being able to hear about the work that they're doing to figure out different solutions to climate change, whether it's in India and Japan, whether it's in California or New York. Really interesting to study cutting edge areas of knowledge in economics and forestry and being able to actually put what I'm learning into practice. And then I also got to have some amazing internships that led me to have very unique experiences. That one of them, I got certified as a wildland firefighter. And then the other, I got to create an urban forestry program for Duke, which was a really cool opportunity, both of them. So these are gifts that I could never have imagined when I first signed up to come to Duke. But those are great. But it is also one of just the most beautiful campuses I've ever seen. As when you got to visit here not too terribly long ago, it's stunning. It's like being at Hogwarts a lot of the time. And so that's a wonderful opportunity to literally be in one of the most prettiest campuses in the world.
Great. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. Obviously, all the work that you guys are doing is inspiring, just to hear how forward-thinking Duke has been in the fight against climate change. And I'm very jealous of the role you and Sustainable Duke get to play in helping to drive these activities. Everyone that's watching, I'd ask, please follow Sustainable Duke on Twitter or X, Sustainable Duke, or visit sustainable.duke.edu to learn more about the program. And just thank you again.
Happy to do it. Have a good rest of the day.
If you enjoyed our podcast, please subscribe and visit us at WattSherpa.com.